All right, welcome to the Krueg Show. Why don't we get it rolling here with our regular intro? Here we go, and like that. All right, May 30th, 3:35 in the afternoon. Hope everybody's having a great day today. Beautiful day out here in Walnut Creek. Thanks for joining the Pig and a Pickle Krueg Show. I am Larry Krueger. We are brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, best barbecue in Northern California. 2 locations, Emeryville and Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week in Marin County from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. Wednesday through Sunday in Emeryville. Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. And on that note, we welcome in the man who's locked on Warrior basketball and has joined us throughout the playoff run, Cyrus Satzes.
Good to see you, man.
Good to see you. What a presser that was. Wow. And I just put out a lengthy tweet. I put out a video breaking it down. But now let's chop it up, me and you.
Can you give me the Cliff Notes version? I would love to know your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so basically, I mean, just so for those who didn't see my tweet at Sports Larry KMBR, this is what I tweeted. I said, very interesting Warriors Bob Meyer resigns presser. Here are my takeaways. 1, Myers had said he stepped down to be more, quote, mentally present with his family. 2, he took the high road and thanked everybody. 3, he said he'll miss the people and the competition the most. 4, he officially leaves on June the 30th, but will clearly have no say in the 2023 draft process. 5, he had a few brutally honest comments in the presser, like Joe loves size, an obvious reference to the James Wiseman pick. He referenced battling things out with Joe. When he was asked about the difficult season they had this year, he said it was a trying season, but it's not why. He did go on to say that's not why I'm leaving. When he was asked about what's next, he said, I love basketball so much, and added, I'm not done working. Said his departure had zero to do with money. Tim Kawakami then asked if Myers was going to run the 2023 draft when he looked at the timeline, and after Joe had kind of joked that Bob was going to stay till the end, and Bob seemed to indicate the answer was no, and then said, I wasn't very good at that anyway. That comment seemed odd since he drafted Draymond Green in the second round and Jordan Poole late in the first round. Joe Lacob then took the stage and said, 1, he has no idea why Bob is leaving and where he's headed next. Unlikely, I stated. Cited bench strength and organizational continuity when asked about Bob's replacement, clearly pointing to Mike Dunleavy or Joe's sons as primary candidates for the job. Then stated flatly, we are going to win no matter what. Said there are misconceptions about his involvement in basketball decisions, but then immediately said he's involved day to day. When he was asked about the draft, he said, we will be ready, but he had no mention of Larry Harris, who's their lone remaining personnel executive with actual credentials. He refused to answer if outside GM candidates would be considered, likely because they won't be. He refused to answer if his sons are GM candidates, likely because they are primary candidates, and he's keenly aware of how that looks. And Joe finished by saying he expects to win the title every year. So that was my summation of it.
Yeah.
Give me your takeaway. What stood out to you?
I think a lot of what we heard from Joe was just cover like he obviously wasn't going to reveal the truth. I saw those parts of it. I thought the Wiseman aspect was fascinating. So what you heard, I missed that part of the press conference. So what you heard then is that, and I'd love to know your interpretation of this, is what you heard basically that the Wiseman pick was a Lacob pick and not necessarily a Myers pick. Is that how you interpret that?
Yes. He says Joe loves size, to me, that was an obvious reference to the James Wiseman draft choice.
Right. But see, because what I've heard is that Myers is not opposed to size either, and so that makes me wonder if I don't know. I definitely need to think about that one. That's fascinating, but because Myers also made that comment this year where and we both talked about this extensively back in March or April when he had the press conference and they asked him about, any moves you're going to make at the trade deadline. and he responded by saying that what's the point in getting it big if Kerr isn't going to play him, right? And that comment resonated strongly. I mean, that was like, that to me was the beginning of the end, truly, at that point. But it makes me, again, I guess we'll have to hear from Bob someday down the road if he ever becomes truly forthright about where his vision and Kerr's visions aligned and differed. How much influence Joe Lacob has. I'll say this about Joe Lacob, man. I'd rather have an owner who cares this much about winning than having an owner who is more apathetic to it. But I'm also incredibly alarmed that the Warriors are going down the Dallas Cowboys path with Jerry Jones. I talked about this just a moment ago on Locked On Warriors about how, look, the Warriors won 4 titles. Those Cowboy teams in the 90s won 3 titles, but it wasn't Jerry Jones winning those titles. Maybe he had a part in it, but Jimmy Johnson was a brilliant coach. I feel like the Barry Switzer part of it just fed the ego of ownership at that point, because you had a different coach. You still won a Super Bowl. And that just set the stage for Jerry Jones running things for the next 25, 30 years. I pray to God, man, and I'm not a very religious person saying that Joe Lacob doesn't take that similar approach. The one positive with Kirk Lacob, and I'm not a fan of nepotism. I don't support it at all. So just that alone on the optics is kind of shady, but he at least knows basketball. And I can't say this for all his sons. I can only say this for Kirk. Kirk was a walk-on tryout at Stanford. So even though he didn't make the team, you can't even get to the tryouts unless you're like a really good basketball player, especially if you're trying to get on a D1 Pac-12 team like Stanford. So he at least knows basketball. This isn't just some trust fund baby that just got, thrown in with daddy's company and is, and is just reaping all the benefits. Like, he at least knows basketball.
I hear what you're saying, but the old saying, a little bit of knowledge is a dangerous thing. That's Jerry Jones played college football for the University of Arkansas. So he knows football, but he hasn't won dick since Jimmy Johnson left. And it's like, Joe, I mean, it's like, we didn't get enough of why now? So you've always had this family. You've always had, a wife now and daughters. But why now? Why?
Well, a couple reasons.
Why does he want to leave now?
A couple of reasons. One is Joe Lacob, and it's kind of crazy that he's shown his hand so transparently. But Joe Lacob, his negotiating tactic is and this has been like how he's done this with everyone. He always starts off with a low ball offer. He even did this to Stephen Curry. Like when they were talking about Stephen Curry's contract extension that Steph did get, the 5-year Supermax deal. Originally, Lacob didn't want to give Steph a 5th year. Lacob was trying to get Steph to sign a 4-year extension, and Steph and his agents were like, "What the hell are you doing here? Like, this is, of course we're going to, it's either 5 years or nothing." And ownership had no leverage, man. It's Stephen Curry, so they gave him the 5th year. But that's how Lacob operates. And when this season started with Bob Myers as a lame duck GM, it started with Lacob throwing a lowball offer at Myers, man. The first offer was way below like what a top tier GM would make. I don't know what the dollar amount is, but I do know it was insulting. And that to me kind of snowballed this whole thing, because when Myers was given this low offer and then Lacob came back with a second offer that still wasn't to make him the highest paid GM, but it was a more reasonable top tier offer. By that point, Myers started thinking, man, like, I don't think his original thought for leaving was, I miss my family. I have 3 daughters. His wife is gorgeous. I mean, she's a former Lakers dancer. I don't know if you've ever seen pictures of her, but, I can't blame Myers, given he has no financial worries for the rest of his life, if he wants to just stay at home with his family and just have fun. I totally get it. But I do think it started, A, with the money situation, with these lowball offers. And then B, it was just the conundrum that for the first time in Myers' tenure, him and Kerr were not on the same page. I mean, every year until this year, they shared the same vision. And this year, that vision fractured. And Kerr had one vision, which is, I'm going to support my big 3. I'm going to, play the players that they like the most, which is why we saw Lamb and Jerome over the young players. And then Bob Myers was like, dude, I drafted these guys for a reason. I mean, we see this conflict a lot in sports where the GM and the coach kind of clash because the GM drafts players, the coach may or may not play the players, and it causes conflict. And that happened here, and that's never happened before. And I think that wore on Myers a little bit too, man. So that's where we are.
Well, I mean, interestingly enough, then, I mean, if what you're saying is true, that Joe lowballed him initially,
it is true.
Then why come back with some record-setting offer in the 11th hour? See, this is, and I had people with the Warriors contact me and push back and say, hey, look, if Bob leaves, it's because he wants to spend time with his family, and Joe's offering him the moon and then some. It's going to be a record-setting deal, and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, you know what? That's awesome. But you know what? There's a way to offer the most money and still make your intentions known. And I'm sure Myers just felt like Joe wanted him out. It's been rumored for a couple years now that Myers was just simply there to groom Joe's sons for this job.
I hope that's not true.
And so now it's like, if Joe was, if what the Warriors told me was correct, and that Joe offered Bob record-setting money, then why was the initial offer, making him like not even one of the top 5 highest paid GMs in the sport?
Because that's how Lacob rolls. I mean, why didn't Lacob offer Steph that 5th year initially? It's just a weird. It is weird that like I don't know if it's transparent. It just became obvious to me. That's how Lacob rolls, man. He's a businessman who, when he makes an initial offer, that's his negotiating tactic. It's far below either what the other person feels they deserve, or it's below market value, and then he negotiates from there to get the best deal. I'm with you, man. Like, Lacob made one comment during the press conference. I don't know if you alluded to this or not, where he called Bob Myers like his 5th child, right? He said he had 4 children, and then Bob
right.
But Bob didn't really, like, Bob had a weird face. He had a weird look on his face when Lacob said that, almost like, I don't agree with that.
Well, no, first of all, I mean, it's condescending. It's like you can say somebody's your child, but when they're running your team, how many dads actually look at their children as smarter than them? It's like, right. I'm smarter than you. I know more than you. I'm superior to you because I'm the father. You're the son. And to me, it's like, it's kind of like, well, why did you think of him as your kid? I mean, I don't know. To me, it's always been somewhat uncomfortable knowing that Joe is a basketball wannabe and his kids are basketball wannabes. And it's like, you don't see Jed York sitting there going, no, we're not taking Jair Brown. We're going to take a different safety from a different school because I think that's the right thing to do. But I think that does happen in the Warriors situation. I think Myers made it perfectly clear. It's not about money. So I don't think it's about money. I think it's about control. Yeah. I think it's about control. It's like, I don't want to be, you're never going to blame your kids or yourself for screwed up draft picks. James Wiseman's proof of that. When has Joe come out and said, you know what? Bob had nothing to do with that. That was me demanding James Wiseman. He said a lot of things, but he hasn't said that. And somebody screwed up that pick.
Yeah.
Nobody's publicly owned it. But Myers kind of suggested today that was Joe's pick. What if you're Bob Myers and you're like, hey man, I think we ought to go with Tyrese Halliburton. I think we ought to go with LaMelo Ball. And Joe and Kurt and Kent roll in and say, no, Bob, we're going with James Wiseman. And now it goes up in flames and you have to trade James Wiseman away. Well, it's your track record, but it was their decision. And it's like, if I'm going to get called on the carpet for bad decisions, I want to be able to have the autonomy to make them. I don't want somebody to dictate to me what they think I ought to do. It's like, you know what? Not everybody is Elgin Baylor. Not everybody needs the job so bad that they're willing to look the other way no matter what. That's what Elgin Baylor did for Donald Sterling forever. Yeah. Forever. Elgin Baylor was great player, one of the greatest players that ever played, maybe the Michael Jordan of his era. But in some ways, he's also connected to just being the yes man for decades for Donald Sterling. Bob Myers is too talented to be a yes man for Kirk and Kent and Joe Lacob.
It's all fair.
And he made it perfectly clear. It's like, well, I want to be more mentally present for my family. But then he said, I love basketball and I'm not done working. So what does that mean? I think if you said to me, give me your honest assessment of why you think Bob Myers left, I think he left because no amount of money is worth the gigantic, colossal pain in the ass that Joe Lacob has been to him for the last 8 or 9 years, probably more, calling him 15 times a day with his crazy, for every good idea Joe had, there's 20 or 30 stupid ass ideas that Myers couldn't say. That's stupid as fuck. He probably couldn't say that. He had to be like, well, you know what? That's interesting. That's interesting. Now, if he goes to the Clippers, he could probably just run the thing and just be like, this is what I think we should do. And he doesn't have to deal. And maybe he can deal with Jerry West a little bit, but he doesn't have to deal with, Ballmer calling him saying, you know what? My son thinks we ought to take this 2-guard instead of, my son thinks Alan Smiley-Geach is going to be damn good. We think, who are you? You're a billionaire. You're just because you're a billionaire and you had offspring doesn't mean that they're general managers.
Yeah, that's
very fair. And when you start getting out of your lane and start doing things with no credentials, I could buy I could make enough money to be a billionaire and buy my own hospital. Doesn't mean I'm gonna say, hey, heart surgeons, there's the fucking door. Me and my kid know. Yeah, my kid helps me with my YouTube channel, and we're doing pretty good. So you know what? We don't need the heart surgeons anymore. We're gonna go with me and my kid. No, we don't do that. And you know what? I wouldn't want to have my heart operated on by somebody who knows YouTube. You know what I mean? I don't want my basketball team put together by somebody who's a basketball fan who was, what'd you say? He liked basketball at Stanford or something. I mean,
he tried out for the team, but
great. Awesome. You see what I mean?
But you're right. I brought that up too. I mean,
laughable.
Jerry Jones played as well. You're right. I mean, and I think that obviously created delusions of grandeur in Jerry Jones's head. All I can say is I pray that this is not the same situation here that's going down. Possible, yes. We're about to find out. I mean, now that Bob Myers is gone, because chances are Mike Dunleavy Jr. is going to take the role. Chances are Kirk Lacob will have almost maybe like a co-captain type of role. I mean, who knows what's going on behind the scenes there? But this is clearly, unless he brings someone in that is not a subservient yes man, this is going to be Lacob's team. And if what you're saying is true, and it very well might be, I mean, Steve Kerr's next, right? I mean, because if Steve Kerr's the one that doesn't like playing bigs, and if Lacob loves bigs that much, Steve Kerr's next. I mean, he's on the way out, man. I don't see how he stays if that's true, because Kerr is going to do things his way. We've learned that this year. So, yeah.
I mean, it just seems really like, Bob's such a gentleman and so polite. And that's, I think, part of the problem. If he had a little bit more, get these guys out of here. I mean, in reality, Larry Harris and Bob Myers are fully capable enough on their own to run this team
easily.
But where's Larry Harris in this mix? I mean, Joe's like, we'll be ready for the draft. No mention of Larry Harris. Larry Harris's opinion is the only one in the room that really, I think, has to be heard. I mean, who else you going to hear from?
Larry Harris has always been very behind the scenes, right? I mean, we never.
He's a former GM. I mean, he's got experience in the chair.
Right. But I never see him do interviews. I never see him he's a very behind the scenes type figure. So like you talk to him a lot. I know you bring him on your show. Like, is he that influential? Is he I
think he's the brains of the operation. I think he is the basketball guy. And he's really the only hope that I have that the thing is not going to fall and hit this, really hit the skids.
Right.
Because on some level, they're probably going to have to listen to Larry Harris.
I hope so.
And that's probably a good thing. But I mean, I just felt like Bob Myers is getting pushed out, and that Bob Myers doesn't want to be there, not because he doesn't want to be a general manager anymore, but also the other thing that really jumped out to me is the line that Joe had where he was talking about, we want, what did he say? Like, we're going to win or something like that.
Yeah. He's going to keep winning, because he was asked about the CBA being an obstacle, and he said, I don't care about the rules. We're going to win no matter what.
Yeah. We're going to win no matter what. Well, that sounds like a petulant child, to be honest. I mean, that's not grounded in any kind of basis of anything real. We're going to win no matter what. Why? Because you said so? Because I said so, and I'm a billionaire and I get what I want. You're not going to win shit. You you're seriously, you're not going to win anything. The rules are set up. Your best player's 35. Your top 3 players are all old. You don't have young pieces. You just gave away the future of James Wiseman. You don't have. I mean, who are you fooling? You're going to win no matter what. You're not winning no matter what. Were you going to win no matter what this year? Yeah. Guess what? You're not winning.
I'll still take him over.
I mean, you win with players, man.
Older Warriors fans will remember his predecessor, right? Chris Cohan, and you could even go beyond that. And so you got to be grateful at least that you have an owner now that wants to win at least, right? And isn't just drinking booze and cheating his taxes and who knows what else that guy was doing.
I mean, Myers might have left because of that. Because look, you know what? This guy's been hell to deal with when we were good enough to win, and now Myers is realistic enough to know that. Man, they caught lightning in a bottle and they had incredible talent, and that's why they won. And guess what? They aren't going to have going forward? Incredible talent. And so they're probably not going to win. He's like, wait a second. Joe was a gigantic pain in my ass, calling me 10, 12 times a game or day when we were winning. And now he's going to be, going crazy because we're not winning.
I mean, but let me ask you this. If you're Bob Myers, and as a GM, you've won 4. Your resume is impeccable. 2 execs of the year, 4 titles. It goes on and on. You have an insanely beautiful family, and he's a young father, right? His kids are young. You would know much better than me how that is, right? So his kids are growing up, but they're still like toddlers to 8, 9. I mean, what more does he need to do, right? If you have enough money to just sit back and drink margaritas with your wife all day and play with your kids, I mean, that doesn't sound bad to me. You know what I'm saying? Like,
so if he does that, if he sits out for, I'll even just say 2 years. Okay. If he sits out for the next 2 years, then you know what? We should have taken him at his word. But if he just jumps right back into it and he's the general manager of the Clippers in a year, then this was a dog and pony show.
True. That's correct.
It's funny. Kevin Fontana in here sounds like Joe Lacob's burner account. This team's in way better shape than before Lacob bought the team. Okay. And that matters. Why? I mean, and how is that relevant at all? I mean,
they did win 4 titles under his ownership. I mean,
I'm not saying Joe Lacob's a joke. I'm just saying that Jerry Jones won 3 Super Bowls and then never has won since.
True. We're not there yet, though. We're not there yet. I don't want to jump ahead and say that's where they're going. I pray that's not what's going to happen, man. But you're right. It's possible. I mean, Jed York even had some learning experience. Jed York for a little while was a meddler, wasn't he? I mean, isn't that the whole reason why Jim Harbaugh ultimately got pushed out was because Jed?
No, not to this level. Jed doesn't have a board. Joe supposedly has his own board.
Yes, the Athletic did great reporting there. That is correct. Yes, you're absolutely right.
So Joe's got his own board.
Yeah,
and Joe's got kids who want to make decisions. And you know what? I don't doubt that they think they know, but they know more. Look what we know. Mitchell and Ness goes, remember when Lacob said he would win a championship and everyone booed him at Oracle? Look what happened. Yeah, but that team that he bought already had Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, and they were babies.
Well, not Klay, but they drafted him under. I can't remember if they had Steph when.
Yes,
Klay was drafted in 2011. But Steph,
did they not have Steph?
Him, right.
We had Larry Riley and Nelly.
Riley, right. Yeah,
but I mean, it took ask David Kahn, the T-Wolves GM, if it's easy to handicap the draft. He took Ricky Rubio and Johnny Flynn, 2 point guards in front of Steph Curry.
Oh boy, yeah.
So
what is David Kahn doing now?
It takes a lot. It takes a lot of expertise and knowledge to pick the right guys. And Nelly had the vision, and Larry Riley had Nelly's ear, and that they basically said, you know what, Steph and Dell, go to hell. I don't care if you want to be a Knick. Great. That's awesome. Screw you. You're going to be a Warrior. You know what I mean? That's basically what Nelly and Riley said. Steph didn't want to work out for the Warriors. Didn't want any part about playing with Golden State because Golden State was a loser. Golden State was a perennial loser and a doormat and a terrible franchise, and he wanted no part of it. At some point, Don Nelson and Larry Riley had to stare that down and say, no. Our evaluation will rule the day. Now, you're telling me that, I think Myers has kind of been – I don't think Myers is like – he's not Jerry West, and he's not Nelly. He's not like one of these. He's not Sam Presti. I mean, if you really wanted to go, be this awesome team going forward, you would go, pay Sam Presti 3 times what he's making in Oklahoma City and just say, come here, Sam. OKC was not going to the playoffs this year. They were a lottery bound team with a ton of future and no present, and somehow they made the playoffs. And look what they've done. Look at the assets. Look what they've built. I mean, the smart move is you built this opulent arena. You've got this franchise that's worth tons. You've made a lot of good moves, but you hired Jerry West, and now you're talking about you're hiring your kid.
Yeah.
I mean,
I agree with you. I don't support any of that. I'm totally with you. I always give Larry Riley his due, man. I always remind people, and players love GMs who pick them, right? I mean, Stephen Curry named his oldest daughter after Larry Riley. That's why her name is Riley. So no, I'm totally with you on that. I don't, the Kirk Lacob thing does not pass a sniff test. It is nepotism at its finest. I guess I'm just going to wait and see before I start dropping bombs and saying that this is a disaster. You might be right, man. And again, I'm with you.
How about this? How about if Myers just knew that Joe's like hell bent on winning a title every year, and that they're going to go through a down cycle the same way they had an up cycle? They're going to go through a down cycle, and he's just like, hey, I just don't want to be here for this. I don't want to be here for the down cycle because it's coming and there's no way to avoid it.
And it didn't help that he had a coach who stopped playing the players that he was drafted for too. You're right. The Warriors are at a point right now where they're going to need real leadership. And I don't know if Kirk Lacob and Mike Dunleavy Jr. are the answers. I don't know if Joe Lacob is the answer. But the good news is, and again, this is where I do love Joe, and hopefully he'll continue to do this. He doesn't stand pat. He doesn't just sit on his laurels when the Warriors struggle. They do make changes. They are aggressive, but I'm totally with you, man. I do agree that they should be hiring a top level, high profile GM to replace Bob Myers instead of hiring from within. The Mike Dunleavy Jr. thing, like that, I don't know if he's a good GM or not. He fails like the eye test, obviously. He was a horrible player. He fits the nepotism role as well. I mean, who knows what he's doing if his dad's not, a former player and head coach and executive himself. So you're right, man. The nepotism angle of this stinks to high end. The parallels to Jerry Jones stink to high end. You might be incredibly prescient here in calling out what's going to happen to the Warriors. I'm just shit, man. I'm just trying not to fall into that pit, dude, because it's depressing as all hell, and I want to hold out some hope, yeah. So we'll see, man. This just sucks, though. I don't like losing Myers. That like the story he told Larry, and I don't know if you relate to this. Like he told a story at the beginning of his press conference about how he grew up as a fan, and he used to go to games at Oracle, and he'd sit up in the upper decks. And I remember people telling me that. People have told me he grew up middle class, which is weird because I don't know where a middle class populace has ever lived in Danville, and that's where he's from. But maybe it exists. Regardless, the fact that the guy was
maybe
huge
it's middle class among Danvillites,
Yeah, maybe.
You know what I mean?
I know they have some townhomes in that city somewhere, but nonetheless, this sucks, dude. I'm not stoked that Myers is gone, and I'm with you, man. The next step, the fact that it's going to be probably Dunleavy Jr. and Kirk Lacob, it sucks. Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, I mean, it's just this isn't how they got there, and then to pretend that it is like this team used to have Travis Schlenk, Larry Harris, Larry Riley, Don Nelson, all these guys were in the same room, and somehow now it potentially could be Mike Dunleavy, who's never been a GM anywhere, or Joe's kids, who. I mean, the optics on that are just awful. I'll tell you the one question that I would have loved to have heard asked in this myriad of softballs that he got was, Bob, you went on the radio after the deadline, and when people push back on you not adding a big, you said, I could get the world's greatest big, but if the coaching staff's not going to play them, what good is that?
Exactly.
What were you referencing there? Was there a disconnect between the front office and the coaching staff? I know you love Steve, but is it possible that you guys everything wasn't copacetic and you guys didn't see eye to eye on how you wanted the team to look? And then just shut the hell up and let him answer. And that question doesn't never, we got this, Bob, tell us about the recitals you're going to go to. It's like, he wants to spend time with his family. I mean, some of the stupidity in the questions gets to be kind of like, how did you even get to be on the tier that you're in that room when you're asking about music recitals? And
because well, Larry, I'm a
so bush league lame.
Larry, I'm a podcast host. Okay, I host a podcast called Locked On Warriors. I go to last year. I went to maybe 10 games. How did I break the story that Bob Myers was stepping down? How did I do it last night? Like, you're right. I've been criticizing Warriors media all season. They do not ask the hard questions. That most of them care a lot more about maintaining a positive, healthy relationship than they do about asking the questions that people want to know the answers to. I'm gonna start going next year. I'm gonna make a lot more appearances next year. I want to work my way up to get that top tier, because you're right. It's like a caste system in the NBA. They have like different levels of media. Like, oh yeah, we're gonna put you in level C, where you don't get access to the locker room, but you can come and maybe ask a question, and we'll give you a seat way up. It's crazy, man. I'm with you. Bay Area media has totally dropped the ball when it comes to covering the Warriors. And again, I should not have been the one that broke the news last night that Bob Myers was leaving. That should not have happened. But
well, I mean, here's the thing. How about this? If you're going to have tiers, have at least one person in the top tier that doesn't have some, old media, we can strong arm them. If you work for a radio station, they can always strong arm the station, especially if you're the flagship. If you work for a newspaper, they can strong arm the newspaper. If you're just some, have your own independent thing, there's no strong arming any independent person, but there's no independent person allowed in the room.
Right.
So you're never going to really get any, you always have a way that you can go back and strong arm the people that you're giving access to. How about one or two people in the room who have access and can ask questions that cannot be strong armed? Why don't we go there? That would be a good approach for not just sports media, politics, and everything else. If we truly want transparency, if we truly want truth and honesty in our reporting, how about take away their ability to influence the employers of the people asking the questions? Then you might get an independent question or two.
Well, that's a whole issue with the entire paradigm of sports media, is that the teams are the gatekeepers and they have so much power. Now, granted, they rarely exercise that. Like, I don't really know many reporters that have had their credentials taken away, for example. But if you're a sports media member, you should not be afraid of that either. And I feel like most of them are afraid. Steve Kerr created that culture of fear for the most part, like, because Steve Kerr got someone fired, and he doesn't like negativity. Like you've interviewed him a bunch of times. I've interviewed him a few times. Like, he scoffs, man. If you ask him questions he doesn't like, he'll scoff. He gets grumpy. But ultimately, if you're a journalist, and I give Anthony Slater credit, man, he's one of the only ones who does sometimes ask hard questions. He's the one who broke the story about Joe Lacob having that big draft board and having all this research compiled in terms of personnel. But you're right. He's one person. And him, Connor Letourneau, CJ Holmes is getting there. He's improving. But you're right, man. There aren't that many good journalists covering the team. It sucks. Yeah.
The Krueg show we put out there. Check out Locked On Warriors podcast. The link is in the description. Mitchell and Ness says, the point is, Larry, and you're all so quick to say Lacob failed, give him a chance. We're not saying Lacob failed. We're saying that there's a very high likelihood that he's going to either give a guy who has never done the job before keys to the franchise, or his kids who have never worked in the NBA outside of his ownership and wouldn't get a job anywhere in the NBA outside of his ownership, running his basketball franchise, a franchise that once upon a time had Jerry West running the show, had Don Nelson running the show. You got Steph and Clay because of Nelly, because of Riley, because of scouts, real NBA personnel evaluators. And you're now going to just be awesome with guys who have never done it. I mean, that's a huge trust me. Well, I would trust you if you use the same protocols and reasoning and thought process to rebuild your team as you did to build it originally. But if you don't, then why am I trusting you? It's like, hey man, I've built buildings. Yeah, but you used a contractor. Now you're using your Uncle Phil, you know? I mean, you built this building with licensed contractors, and now you're going with your nephew. And it's like you're expecting me to. I'd rather drive across the bridge that was built by engineers than built by your niece.
Right.
Just call me. Maybe that's just me. Glass half full guy says, as a fan, it's disappointing they can't bring in someone like Sam Presti, and instead we'll just hire his son. Hashtag nepotism.
Hey, Larry, trust me, man. Just trust me.
Trust me, man. Trust.
I know.
I mean, it's like, hey, you know what? I took my car to a mechanic, and he had it. He always did my car right, and I went to him for years. But now he's busy, and I think he retired. And his niece is now running it. She used to run a catering business. She's now running the car shop. So should I just bring my car to her because you know what? The guy who owns it still owns it. No, I'm not handing my car to a caterer. I want more. I want a mechanic. You know what I mean? I mean, seriously, it's like, you go get your hair cut by a barber. If your barber sells out to his neighbor, you don't. Hey, what are you? I'm the barber's neighbor. Well, suddenly you don't feel as good about your haircut. I mean, it's not that complicated, really. I mean,
you're right. You're absolutely right. I don't know what to say about that.
I just get the feeling that, it's like Joe's in the trust me, but he's trust me with a totally different approach than the approach that worked the first time around. So that's why I guess I'm not in a rush to trust. And I hate to say this is exactly what I said was going to happen a month ago when the Warriors reached out to me to tell me that, man, Joe's offered. I said, Joe is going to run out Bob Myers because, for whatever reason. And now Bob's going to wind up leaving. He's going to go somewhere else. And Joe's going to replace him with Dunleavy, who's beholden to Joe. And just going to basically say, Joe, what do you want to do? We've seen it done before. Al Davis had all kinds of yes men in his later years with the Raiders.
Oh, yeah.
And it was just like Al, watched some film. He didn't watch some film. He literally drafted guys that they didn't even have on their board. The Raiders have, fell into, a terrible down cycle because of it.
For a long time, man. For a long time, too. Yeah.
I mean, and now you're suddenly going to try to do the same kind of thing. It's like, dude, I'm paying $52 for 3 beers. I deserve to be watching at least a professional outfit, not just a billionaire with his whims. I mean, that's where we're at. We're at billionaire whim territory at this point, and it's all based on trust us. But how many years are we going to go down this road of, you know what? And then all of a sudden it's going to be like, well, it was a down cycle. Well, was it? Or did you just make bad decisions? I mean, I can make an argument that the Warriors have made pretty much very inconsistent decisions basketball-wise on their roster, really, since Jerry West left.
Yeah, I mean, if you consider... I always push back on that a little bit just because the Warriors, with the exception of the 2 years when they weren't great and they got the lottery picks, they didn't have high picks, right? They had like number 28, number 30, second rounders. I don't know any GM that's been consistent in terms of drafting that late and being successful. It remains to be seen if Jordan Poole was a successful draft pick because that was part of Myers' tenure. But the Wiseman thing...
Has the nepotism thing ever worked? I'll just point to that.
No.
Has it ever worked? Is there any son of a great GM that just is like,
no,
yep, this guy's
no,
awesome.
I don't know that. And Ozzie Rules writes, that nepotism is common in all aspects of life. May be true, but it doesn't mean that we have to just accept it and be okay with it. It's not a good thing. Nepotism is not something we should be supporting. One thing I wanted to say though, like what I'd heard was an issue though. But I'd been informed that Bob Myers wanted James Wiseman to play. That even regardless of who was responsible for the pick, that Wiseman was a player that Bob Myers thought should have been playing, and that created a fissure when Steve Kerr just gave up on him this year, right? And Myers actually, even in an interview, commended Wiseman for the way he played on that Christmas Day game against the Grizzlies. He only played 8 minutes, but it was a solid 8 minutes. He did exactly what anyone thought they should expect from Wiseman on a championship team, which is just rebound, defense, keep things simple, low minutes. And he did fine. They won that game. That was a big game at the time. Obviously, things changed. At my understanding, from what I've been told, and I do have like sources that I trust dearly, and they told me that Myers really started to sour when he started seeing his players just rot away, because one of Myers' big things is individual relationships. That's one of his strengths. And he doesn't like being put in these positions where the players he's drafting that he feels responsible for are totally getting screwed over. And that I was told that was an issue, that it actually became a problem and it led to bigger things. But it could have been like a myriad of things, you know? I mean, there were so many things going on this year that just stunk to no end. And it just, this whole thing stinks, man.
Well, I mean, you know, it was the most beautiful part about the entire thing is that everybody's, oh, we love Bob. But we just found out about it today.
That's ridiculous.
That's a fucking lie. That's a goddamn lie. That's like the biggest lie. We didn't know anything about it until today. In fact, we're just finding out about it today. Oh, stop it.
That is not true, man.
Please stop. But pushed, I mean, no, that was so absurd.
I heard that. The moment I heard that, that's when I realized Lacob, this was just going to be a BS show today, right? It's Bob Myers Day. Like you're not going to get anything from Lacob. And that was the pendulum of just utter crap being spewed, because everyone, they knew last night, if not sooner. I mean, who knows when the decision came down, but yeah, that was not true at all, man. I don't know why he said that.
We're just finding out about this right now.
I don't know why he said that.
So ridiculous.
That was crazy, dude.
And then immediately when I basically came out about a month ago and tweeted out, I'm like, you know what? The Warriors are going down this road. They're going to get rid of Bob Myers. They're going to give the job over to either Dunleavy, who's just going to be beholden to Joe, or Joe's kids. It's nepotism. It's ugly. It's, you know, chart where they're at. And I got pushback from the Warriors, and not one person on the Warriors actually said, no, Bob's not leaving. They're like, well, if Bob leaves, it's because he just needs more time to spend with his family. Okay. So maybe we got a little bit of reference to that today. But then it was like, and Joe has offered Bob the moon. Well, I didn't say anything about money. I never said Bob's leaving because Joe doesn't have enough money to offer him, or is not offering him enough money. But I think we've all seen through Farhan and the way he's pursued free agents, there's a way to offer a lot of money and still fall short. And there's a way you just offer the wrong amount of money at the wrong time. You know, you offer a super low ball offer, and then when everything becomes public, you go like, hey, wait a second, we're going to offer record-setting money, you know, so you can cover your ass. It's a CYA kind of a thing, you know, cover your ass. And it's just kind of, I just feel like the Warriors are just doing that. They're covering their ass. They know that Bob is a popular guy. They know he's a local guy. They know there's no real reason with 4 titles to run him out. So this is what you do. You take away his power. You don't let him make decisions. You force your kids upon him. You tell him that you're not happy about the way he drafted. I mean, what did you make of Myers there saying I wasn't very good at drafting?
I think he was joking. I thought that was a joke. I thought he was just being
flippant. I thought it was a reference to Joe's told me I'm not very good at drafting.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't think of it like that. I thought he was just literally he said that in jest, but maybe you're right. I don't know. That's when you put it that way, it definitely raises your eyebrows, makes you think. Look,
but I just feel like, and so I'm like, this is nepotism and and I get the pushback. Joe's offering him the moon. I didn't say he wasn't offering him the moon. So then it's like, okay, Joe he doesn't want to be the bad guy. Joe's smart enough to know that he can't force out Myers after the success he's had. So you got to do it, you know, in this covert, backhanded way. So I'm sure that's what's going on here. Myers is no stooge. So he read the handwriting on the wall and he's getting out, and he'll go somewhere else probably immediately. I wouldn't be surprised if he's running the Clippers this summer.
You think so?
Well, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, maybe he'll let it breathe a little bit.
It would speak volumes. It would speak volumes if Myers took another job right away, because there would be no doubt in anyone's mind at that point. Myers did not want to work for Lacob, and everything you're suspecting is true. You're right. I even think if like a year from now he takes a job somewhere else, that kind of stinks. Like I'm still holding out hope that maybe a year from now if the Warriors struggle this year, I think this would become plausible that they might reach out and say, Bob, we need you, come back. Because I don't think he's leaving the Bay Area. I'm guessing he's going to stay around these parts. God, man, this does suck. I'm not.
I mean, it's so it just, and then you get asked a couple real direct questions. Hey, you going to consider outside sources? Oh, I don't want to talk about that. Why? Because he's not. He's not. And then it's like, oh, are you gonna hire, your sons? I don't want to talk about that. Why? Because he is. I mean, it's just, and the only difference will be either Dunleavy will be the buffer between because he knows the optics. He knows the optics look terrible if he runs off Bob Myers and puts his kids there. And
Right.
let's be honest, the Warriors are probably going to hit a rough patch here. So why would you set up your kid for that kind of public, failure? Why not just throw Dunleavy a fat check to let him absorb all those slings and arrows and have your kids sitting there right off to the side, actually making all the decisions? And then you just tell your kid, you know what? You get to be the GM. You just don't get to have the GM title. He gets to have the title and he gets to have the blame. You get to do the job and all the fun stuff.
Yeah, and senior softball games, but wrote a couple interesting things. One, I did think months ago, back I think late last year, early this year, I thought Myers. Everything I heard was that he wanted to stay. Like, this was not originally the plan. Things change. I mean, time passes, circumstances change. But he also brings up a good point about Draymond Green. I don't know if Draymond stays now. I don't know if he opts into that player option. Now, look, Draymond did say after Game 6. And Mark Spears was the only one who reported this. So I don't know if that means that Spears was in the locker room and Draymond told him this and he reported it. But Draymond told Mark Spears that if Myers goes, I go. Who knows if that was emotional and his opinion has changed since then.
I knew Myers was out the night after Draymond took the podium after one of the games and started talking up Bob as a key guy. I mean, it was obvious. He wouldn't have even bothered saying that. Bob has been there forever and everybody respects the hell out of him. The fact that Draymond took to the podium in this big defense of the value of Bob Myers told us all that we needed to know, that Bob was on the outs, that it was coming to an end, and that Draymond knew about it then. And that was 2-3 months ago.
So what do you think is going to happen? Is Draymond going to opt in? I mean, is he going to stay? I don't think he's going to opt in, but do you think he's going to stay? Are they going to give him I
think he'll stay because I think he understands that he's viewed on a much better level if he stays in his entire career here. And I think all things being equal, if there were an awesome landing spot that was going to result in a title, he'd probably jet. But he knows LeBron's old and he knows that he probably can't win in LA. He's probably got as good a chance to win here as he does in LA.
I wonder if money's going to talk here. Someone out there, if he does become a free agent, will offer Draymond a lot of money. Maybe multiple teams will, but I'm very curious what's going to happen there, man. Because if Draymond walks, then there's no doubt in my mind anymore, this dynasty is done. They are not a championship contender if Draymond leaves. They can still be a playoff contender, but they're not winning the whole thing, man. They're not. That's just out of the realm of reality. And I'm very curious what's going to happen there, man. I mean, this whole thing is insane, dude. This is just step one of what could be one of the wildest off seasons ever, because we don't know if they're going to keep that draft pick. They can't legally.
Don't trade for LeBron. Whatever you do not trade for LeBron. You trade for LeBron, and then that's done. I'm done with them. If they trade for LeBron,
that would be a Laker move. That would be a Laker move.
I'm so finished with them if they trade for LeBron. To me, look, you built the team the way that you build teams in the NBA through the GD draft.
Yeah,
do it again. And I don't know that you can do it again with your kid and Dunleavy, but do it again. Go. That's what I would do. Is I would go. I like 2 or 3 guys in this draft that I really think are big time players that are steals. This Tristan Vukovic, the Serbian big man. Go get that guy. Go get the Indiana big man, Trace Jackson Davis, Dale Davis's kid. I mean, that's the direction I would go. I would try to get some. You basically hit in the draft by locating skill.
Yeah.
Go do it again. Go find skill. And there's skill in this draft. It's a difficult thing to find, and it's easy to make mistakes in the draft, but this is how you got here. You hit on 3 or 4 big time picks in a row, and guess what? It was good enough to build a core to win titles with. If you're going to do it again, that's the way it's going to happen. It's not going to be because LeBron came here and then suddenly you won again. And to me, if you didn't want to, the reason that you didn't want to drive your core off the cliff is the same reason you shouldn't trade for LeBron, because that's just going to accelerate. There's going to be a lot of lean years if you trade Kuminga and Moody and future picks and Poole for LeBron, and then all of a sudden you fall short of the title next year, and you're looking at 7 years of lottery with an expensive arena that nobody wants to pay for, to watch a team finish in the lottery. So
yeah. By the way, Barry Baller, our buddy, wrote in the chat a sign and trade for Draymond, but the Warriors unfortunately are in a position where they're not legally allowed to do sign and trades. They're so far over the cap that is not an option for them. The Warriors are screwed, man. Like that, and this could be one of the many reasons why Myers left, is because he saw what's ahead, and it's either going to be a rebuild. I mean, because they can't sign anyone for anything more than a veteran minimum. They're restricted there. So any ideas you have about free agents, unless they're willing to come here for cheap. Now, the one player that could be an exception to that is Seth Curry, Steph's brother, for the simple reason that you could get very creative. Steph could siphon him money, could get him an Under Armour deal. So you could, in theory, get Seth on a vet min and then get him a lot of pay, under the table. But anyone else, forget it, man. So either it's a veteran minimum or you make trades. That's it. Those are your two choices.
Yeah. And it's gonna be rough. It's gonna be a rough go.
Yeah.
Cy, let me jump, man. I got another live stream coming bottom of the hour. We'll talk to you soon. There you go. The great Cy Satsas. Glass half full guy says one thing really successful people do is admit things they don't know and hire people who do know. It's maddening to me when owners start meddling. Yeah. Nepotism. Absolutely nepotism. Bay Area Baller says he wants the EuroLeague MVP, Vasilije Micic. His rights are owned by OKC. How about this? Call Sam Presti. Get him. That's what I would do. I'd say Sam Presti. There's cap on player salary. There's no cap on what you pay executives. Go triple Sam Presti's salary and bring him here. That would be the smart move. You want to keep this thing rolling. You want to have a greatness going down the road. Go triple Sam Presti's OKC salary and give him the keys, and then go on a vacation. That would be my plan. Instead, Joe's going to, hire his kid or hire Dunleavy and have his kid make all the decisions. And I don't think that's going to work. All right. That's going to do it for this live stream. Thanks to Cy Satsas for hanging around. We're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle.
With a Sunday dinner. That means no matter how busy you were, no matter where the hell you were, you came to dinner on a Sunday night. Yeah, Sunday dinner without sausage, it's like a church without God. How can you go to church if you don't believe in God? And along with the sausage also became the discussions. That was discussion night. It wasn't a typical family that you sit there and you're quiet, and you don't talk with a mouthful. Oh no, man. Italians talk when they're eating. Italians even talk when they're sleeping. And definitely we talk with our hands. So if we can't express it through our mouth, through our lips, we express it with our hands. So, and that's what sausage is, really. It's an expression, you know, that life is good.
All right, join us on the Krueg Show with Eric Crocker coming up right now as we talk some 49er football next. Hope you enjoyed the live stream with Cy Satsis, but check us out right now on the Krueg Show for the Eric Crocker live stream. Vish Kumaran is going to join us later tonight as well. All that straight ahead on the Krueg Show.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful, you gon' get exactly what you